Had all the introductions, we've had all the pomp and circumstance, we've had all the fuss and feathers, but it's time for Dodger baseball.
Happy Sunday. Hope everyone is doing well and had a nice weekend. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Incline Dodgers podcast. We are presented by Fanduel, TickPick, and BLEAV. We are here to talk about a weekend recap of the World Baseball Classic that is deep underway. There's been so many exciting moments thus far. But for those watching on YouTube or listening wherever you get your podcasts, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and if you're watching on the YouTube feed, get those comments loaded. We'll interact with you along the way. I am joined, this is Kevin Klein, by Ryan Garcia today, who was actually at the World Baseball Classic, so he can provide some firsthand experience. How are you doing, Ryan? And thank you for joining once again. Tell us about how your experience was.
Yeah, happy to be here, Kevin. I will continue to say the strength of your podcast is always kind of giving a voice to the fans, having real, honest conversations about baseball. So just always happy to kind of add value where I can. As you said, fresh off of the games last night, traveled to Houston, went to see a couple of games yesterday. Started off the day at noon with Brazil and Italy. A little less electric, but still really interesting and good baseball there. Got to see some fan favorites like Vinny Pasquantino from the Royals. Got to see Lucas Ramirez, who I want to talk about a little bit later in a few more minutes. But then main event last night, 7 p.m., USA versus Great Britain. Was a little scary for the first 4 or 5 innings, not going to lie. Not quite sure what was happening. I think we were just kind of maybe loosening up. But then Kyle Schwarber, electric home run, massive home run, kind of opened up the floodgates, and the celebrations were going strong into the night. Baseball is alive and well, and I hope, for the love of God, just don't have a lockout next season. Baseball, be smart about this. I mean, baseball has never been, I think, more popular, at least in my lifetime, as it is now, and you're seeing it everywhere. So just super, super interesting environment there, and a lot of excitement, a lot of fun.
Let's dive into Team USA, the hometown country for us, obviously. Yeah, the most recent game between USA and Great Britain was a lot like the experience I had a few years ago, where it was a close game. I think even when I was in attendance, Great Britain might have jumped out in front. I think Trace Thompson hit a home run. But nonetheless, yeah, this was another highly contested game. But of course, the difference between a team like Team USA and Great Britain is we actually have a formidable bullpen as opposed to them, where things start to unravel. And once again, that was the case between USA and Great Britain. Close game at first, but obviously USA pulled away at the very end. I like that they mix and match their lineups for both days. I'm not really sure why a guy like Bobby Witt Jr. wouldn't be starting in each of the first 2 games. But nonetheless, USA pulled it out. It ended up being a blowout at the end of the day. The final score was 9-1 in favor of Team USA. I mean, Tarek Skubal started out on the mound. I know he gave up a home run, but then he settled in afterwards. And then Clay Holmes, he in relief, he looked absolutely electric. So that's a nice weapon out of the bullpen. The one thing I've noticed about Team USA versus maybe some of the other countries participating in the World Baseball Classic is I think there's a case that USA has the best slot of relievers as opposed to maybe some of these other countries. So when we start to pick and choose these other countries we're going to talk about, like Japan and Dominican Republic, their lineups might be a little bit more stacked, but I think where Team USA is going to have the edge has to be the pitching, especially based off some of the news that broke last night, where Skubal is now flirting with the idea of potentially pitching in the finals for Team USA, which would be absolutely massive. You go from Noah McLean, who's essentially a rookie going into a sophomore type of a career transition, versus a two-time Cy Young Award winner who's reigning in those right now with Tarek Skubal.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, right? Because again, I agree with you 100%. Strength is the bullpen, but that Dominican team, that Japan team that's already qualified, by the way, for the quarterfinals, they're 3-0. They're going to be coming in with a lot of confidence. So it's going to be the talent that we know we have in our bullpen against some guys that are going to be feeling really, really good about themselves coming in. Super exciting. By the way, Trace Thompson showed up again last night, if you recall, robbing our boy Will Smith of a home run, a surefire home run. Will Smith got robbed a couple of times that game, and almost a third time when they initially called the runner safe and overturned it, thankfully and correctly, to out at second base. But Will Smith looked really, really good last night. The plate discipline is there. He took a couple of walks. He hit the ball really hard a couple of times, 4 outs, but still hit the ball hard. Feeling really good about him. He looks like he's ready. He looks like he's ready to go right now. So a fresh Will Smith is always a dangerous Will Smith. Agree with you on Clay Holmes. I think I texted you from the game and said, this guy, it looks disgusting. So really fun to watch there. Couple of other points I wanted to bring up in general about just the World Baseball Classic. The Machado throws we saw, right, that in the same game, doing his best impression of Brooks Robinson, deep at third base and flinging that ball across, just absolutely fantastic. And then the vibe from the crowd there. Of course, game 1, 17-year-old Joseph Contreras, right, in a huge moment, getting Aaron Judge to kind of break his bat, ground into a double play for a 17-year-old. We're just seeing some really cool moments. And then finally, the guy that's really kind of turned my head has been Lucas Ramirez, son of Manny Ramirez. He's 20 years old. I think he was picked in the 17th round. He's in the Angels system, kind of overlooked, and he is really showing out in this competition this year. He had 2 home runs against us in a losing effort for them. But then I watched him play the next day, and he passes the eye test. I mean, he was catching balls. He was getting the balls, throwing guys out. And I don't want to overblow this conversation because it was only a few seconds. But as I was leaving that game, I ran into JP Morosi, who was leaving. And we started talking a little bit about baseball. And I just asked him, what do you think of this Lucas Ramirez kid? And he said, he is having a series. Like, this is one of the stories here of this series, is that he is kind of emerging. I'll tell you what, I've been collecting baseball cards my whole life. You probably see some behind me here. I got back to the hotel. I got on eBay and I bought some Lucas Ramirez cards because that's just, he passes the eye test. So keep an eye out for him. They play tonight, by the way. So if fans of the Incline podcast want to jump on FS1 and watch that and let us know what they think, that'd be great too. But really fun player to watch so far.
This is one of the beauties of the World Baseball Classic because it's an opportunity for guys that aren't MLB ready yet, but are professional athletes like a Lucas Ramirez who can really showcase themselves. And that, goes back to the first game with USA and Brazil. So even though Brazil is 0-2 and likely going to be eliminated in Pool B, just because Italy's 2-0, USA's 2-0, and I wouldn't count out Mexico. And I want to dive into that matchup in a second. But with Brazil, even though they're on the verge of being eliminated and USA pummeled them in the inaugural matchup, 15-5 final score. One of my standout stats that I noticed while watching this game is that Team USA worked 17 walks. Whether that's a credit to our bats having a really good eye, but I want to say realistically, it was kind of a combination of Brazil pitchers just being erratic and all over the place and having a lack of command, and their inexperience and lack of skill level kind of fell apart as they got into their bullpen, as opposed to ours. Well, we had a guy like Mason Miller who got the final 3 outs with 3 strikeouts, as opposed to Brazil just having a bunch of scrubs out there. Aaron Judge hit a home run. Roman Anthony did some damage as well. But USA dominated Brazil. But to your point, Lucas Ramirez was the bright spot, hitting those 2 home runs. And maybe he's the key of the future for the Angels franchise, turning that disaster around. We'll see.
Absolutely.
So I think this is going to be a huge matchup. It's not a rivalry per se, but it's always very competitive. And actually, Mexico has had our number the last few times. They might have a 3-game winning streak, if I recall correctly, against USA. For whatever reason, they just own us. And I was in attendance in 2023 when Mexico just destroyed us. I can't remember who was starting for us, but I do remember I think he's Joey Meneses. He had multiple home runs. Jaron Duran was doing damage. Alec Thomas. The crowd was definitely a Mexico home crowd in Arizona. But I think this time it's going to go a little bit different because Paul Skeens is starting for USA. Don't know who the starter is for Mexico yet. It's not announced. But if I had to guess, you're probably going to see 3-ish innings from Paul Skeens. And if it's the Skeens we're accustomed to, he's going to shut them down.
Yeah, he's about playing in this series too. So I think that I don't care how hot Mexico is coming in. I feel like Paul Skeens can demoralize you pretty quickly. And so I think he'll shut him out early, give us some time to lose. Like USA's been very slow starting in both games, had to rely on walks and some misplays by the opponent to get things going. But then once they do, then the big swings start coming. See more from us, to be honest. Maybe having Bobby Witt back in that lineup will work. But we've been a little messy early on. But when you have that advantage to kind of slow your way into it.
As BC's pointed out, Randy Arozarena, one of the star electric players for Team Mexico, and he did make that catch, as he's pointing out in the comments, which was one of the highlights of the last World Baseball Classic. But we've already got a few electric highlights this World Baseball Classic, which we're going to touch upon momentarily. But just the last thing I wanted to point out on Team USA, and then I'm ready to kind of bounce around the globe with some of these other countries. The one player that I think really needs to get going for us, it's got to be Bryce Harper. He's been hitting. He hit second in Game 1. He hit cleanup in Game 4. He just hasn't done a whole lot yet. And I think if Bryce Harper can get it going, that's going to be kind of the key to passing the baton around and setting up better RBI opportunities for a guy like Aaron Judge, for example, or Cal Raleigh, who I imagine will be back in the lineup for this one. Obviously, Raleigh is a guy who has immense power, hit 60-plus home runs a year ago. You got Kyle Schwarber, who did hit a home run in Game 2, but another guy who has 50-plus power upside. Could definitely see him hitting another one out of the stadium against Team Mexico. So I think if Bryce Harper can get on base, whether it's drawing walks or hit some more doubles, that's going to really help flip this lineup around and get our offense really going.
Yeah, I continue to kind of be a fan of PCA despite his that's just his nature, stirring things up. But I think he's got all the talent in the world. I don't know why he's obsessed with pulling the ball. With him, he used to just want to pull the ball just so dramatically and go down the line, or else just shoot for that gap, over second base. I think he could do all kinds of damage, but we'll see what happens. He's still a young guy. He's getting more opportunities right now with Buxton so I think he's going to be in the lineup. Obviously, his defense is incredible, but if he can at the bottom, I don't think these other teams will have an answer for him. He can cause a lot of setup. He can set the play for some of those big bats you're talking about. So I'm interested. Also, I'm thinking about drafting him in my fantasy team. So I'm kind of selfishly.
So Team USA is favored right now to win the World Baseball Classic per Fanduel. Dominican Republic has kind of shot up a little bit. No surprise. They're now the second favorites, plus 340. Japan sitting there at third, plus 410. And then the fourth team, until it's a pretty big drop-off, is Venezuela at plus 700. So I'm going to ask you this question, Ryan, and then I'll answer it as well. If there's one country outside of Team USA that if you were to make a bet on FanDuel right now that you think could win the World Baseball Classic, who would it be?
They scare me, not just the talent, but they're into this series. They want to win, so they're bringing crazy passion. If you watch those games, they've got the fans on their side. You combine that with the talent they have, they are dangerous.
Yeah.
They're going to be.
I have the same answer as you, and going to deep dive into that in a second. But there's only been 3 countries to win the World Baseball Classic. Now, there's only been 5 tournaments, and Japan has won 3 of the 5, with Dominican Republic taking 1 in 2013, United States in 2017. But I've watched all the Dominican Republic games so far. I know there's only been 2. I watched the one earlier this morning. That lineup, 1 through 9, I don't even think it's close. I think they have the best lineup right now. You got Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting tanks for home runs. Junior Caminera, third baseman for the Tampa Bay Rays, hit 116 mile per hour exit velocity, no doubt about it. I think it was a 424-foot home run earlier today as well for the Dominican Republic. Austin Wells is hitting home runs. You've got Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis Jr., Julio Rodriguez. They're just dropping runs like crazy on every opponent. And even though Christopher Sanchez kind of had a hiccup of a start in his first outing, the bullpen was able to come in for the team managed by Albert Pujols, and they held it down, got the win, and then they crushed today against the Netherlands. That was a blowout. But yeah, Dominican Republic has just been absolutely stacked. If there's one weakness that a team like maybe Japan or USA could exploit them, I guess it would be the pitching side of things.
Yeah, that's where they're going to have to do it. They're going to have to neutralize those bats a little bit, and by neutralize, I'm to like 5 runs. That's the hope. So there was some doubt about Caminero maybe hitting in that small park lot and hitting those home runs. I don't have any doubts about Junior Caminero. He looked.
Yeah, I definitely saw those reports. I mean, Steinbrenner Field certainly is a very smaller ballpark, but when you see the exit velocity, and especially the last few games from Caminero, whether it's from spring training or the exhibition games and now the actual World Baseball Classics, he's hitting multiple balls over 100 miles per hour. And if you can have that swing off the bat, it doesn't matter where you're going to play. That means you're a bona fide, legit player. And yeah, he looks like he's going to be a star third baseman for many years to come. And he's kind of being overlooked to an extent because so far he's doing a ton of damage for the Dominican Republic. And I already named and rattled off a bunch of star players. But when you've got, I guess, a supporting cast like him, for example, that's just going to make this lineup even more deadly. The Netherlands couldn't even take Dominican Republic to 9 innings. Juan Soto essentially hit a walk-off home run to force it as a mercy rule in the 7th inning when they won 12-1. But yeah, I mean, the one red flag for the Dominican Republic, which I referenced a second ago, is that pitching. Like Luis Severino going for them, very beatable arm. Sandy Alcantara, great talent, but for some reason he struggles against the Dodgers. Maybe the side of the high pressure will get to him again in this circumstance. A guy we could see Christopher Sanchez, legit, not going to sleep on him. And then the relief pitchers, not as stacked as Team USA. It's not even close. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that could be the downfall. Anything else on Dominican Republic? Otherwise, I'm ready to shift to Team Japan.
No, I was going to say, just kind of feels like maybe a heavyweight fight where it's going to get decided in the late rounds with that when that bullpen advantage comes around that you've been talking about. It just kind of feels like maybe it's make for a really, really good game against them.
Absolutely. So Team Japan, even though they're undefeated and they're probably going to go undefeated for a while, whether they get to the semifinals or the finals itself, that first game, they had no problem beating the Chinese Taiwan team 13-0. They only allowed 1 hit. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's obviously Dodgers star power, he dominated. He looked good. Shohei Ohtani hit a grand slam, I believe, in that game. They took care of business in that first game. But the second game, they actually had a little bit of a back and forth with Korea. And this one was interesting because another Dodgers player, Hae-Sung Kim, he hit a big home run in that game against Team Japan. And then Shohei Ohtani did his thing. He hit a home run, but Japan squeaked that one out 8-6. And then last but not least, they had one more game today, another one that they barely squeaked out. Again, only a 4-3 victory over Team Australia, who's they're solid, but they're not a threat in my opinion. And when I look at who the starter was for Japan today, he was pitching for the Orioles. I think he moved on to the Rockies this offseason, but it's, pardon my pronunciation, Tomoyuki Sugano. The guy is a fly ball awful pitcher based off what we've seen in the MLB experience. Gave up a ton of home runs for those. I'm curious to see what would happen if he starts a game. I know he wouldn't start in the finals. I doubt he would start in the semifinals. But if for some reason USA and Japan saw him, that would be an arm I'm not afraid of.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like we all know here, to beat the champ, you got to knock him out, right? Japan is a champ. They aren't. So I mean, they're going to come fundamentally with a game plan. I'm not frightened by what I see so far, but I also wonder, are they getting better competition? I mean, certainly Brazil's been overmatched, so I don't know how good we can feel about Great Britain, again, overmatched. I don't know if we're getting tested as Japan is getting tested, which could help Japan.
Yeah.
And that's my only comment about that.
Yeah, and I think the test is going to come against Mexico because Mexico made a very deep run last baseball classic. If I'm not mistaken, Japan took them out in the semifinals. In USA, I can't remember who we beat, but then it set up that USA-Japan matchup. And I expect Mexico to have a pretty deep run again this season, though they don't have the full stacked roster that they had last time when talking about Mexico. They might be missing a starter who once pitched for the Dodgers but kind of punched his way out of the league. But nonetheless, going back to Japan, Shohei Ohtani, obviously the star. He's already done big things in this tournament. He's already got a couple home runs. Had an offer in this most recent game, but he's still hitting .556 with an OPS over 2,000. Seiya Suzuki, who plays for the Cubs, I know he had a big home run. He's doing very well, 1,500 OPS. A guy that has, kind of been trade talks for the Red Sox, and I know there's been some frustrations with kind of him underperforming at times, but Masataka Yoshida has been a monster for Team Japan as well in this World Baseball Classic. He's connected for some home runs. He's hitting 500. He's got an OPS over 1,700. He's been doing very well. Some of the new guys who went from Japan to the USA MLB teams, including Okamoto and Murakami, they haven't done a whole lot so far this tournament. Curious to see if they wake up. But yeah, with Japan, obviously, it's going to be really curious to see where Yoshinobu Yamamoto ends up lining up, and if he were to have to face Team USA, because of all the starters that they could roll out there. Obviously, Yamamoto is the most imposing of anyone Team Japan has to offer, in my opinion. And I don't know if they have like the same up-and-coming phenom arms like they did last time. For example, Roki Sasaki, who was still a few years away from coming to MLB. I don't really know if I've seen the next Roki Sasaki come out of the pen or pitch for Team Japan so far in this World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, I haven't watched a lot of that particular pool play, so I'm taking your word for it, and it sounds right by what I've been able to read. I haven't really got to watch those particular games. I will say I'm not Ohtani wouldn't pitch an inning if it got down to the last game when they needed an inning from it. The threat could always be looming. For country, I might do it. We'll see. Hopefully we don't have to. Healthy. The one thing in the brackets that I've been watching, I seem really susceptible to the changeup. These other teams, I mean, on changeup, it's almost automatic. 2-2, 3-2. It's going to be a changeup. They're just going to swing out of their heels for that. Kind of an interesting observation, and I'm just curious if it has to do with differences in the type of play, or if it's just this early in the season and guys as well. But it's kind of just be on the lookout for that too. I think it's
Absolutely. So some of the individual moments that I just wanted to point out that have made this classic already special. A couple games ago, Ozzy Albies, who we've seen a lot, he plays for the Atlanta Braves. He's had some big home runs against the Dodgers in the playoffs. Well, he hit a walk-off 3-run home run for the Netherlands over Nicaragua on Saturday. They were down to their last out. And the pitcher for the opposition, don't know who it is, but off the top of my head. But nonetheless, Ozzy Albies hits a 3-run home run to walk it off. Netherlands goes absolutely crazy. The guy who gave it up was in tears. Obviously, that's devastating for him. But it's just moments like that that are very cool. Who was playing for Nicaragua, who was part of the Mookie Betts trade, a blast from the past, Jeter Downs. That was like his breakout game. First of all, he almost hit a home run. He got it robbed. Then he had this amazing defensive play to prevent what could have been a devastating run against the team. And then I think in either the next bottom of the half inning or like an inning or two later, he hits a massive go-ahead 2-run home run to put his team on top 3-1. But unfortunately for him, Ozzy Albies is what was the final blow. But yeah, I like seeing guys that, for example, may have been in the majors and didn't pan out, and then show up for the Dodgers. They show up for the World Baseball Classic like a Jeter Downs or Didi Gregorius, another one, a blast from the past. Saw him hit a home run today. Former MLB guys that are now out of the league, but then show up in the World Baseball Classic. You talked about Trace Thompson earlier.
Yeah, that catch, I was short run, and all of a sudden I see this, the outfielder go up, snag it, and catch it. And I'm sitting there next to my wife, and she's like, "You know who that was?" I'm Trace Thompson. I look up on the scoreboard, and I'm like, "Yep, that was Trace Thompson." There's a lot of talent out there, right? It's just maybe not major league level talent, right? And when you put them all together and mix them up, it makes for a fun game. For me, some of the big moments so far, again, that Kyle last night was electric. It got the crowd so juiced up, and I think it got to me, Team USA seemed a little lifeless early on, but once that happened, that kind of pumped up. So that was electric. Machado throws from third base, 2 in a game. Whether you love him or hate those throws were legit. So just seeing that and seeing the guys kind of just, vibe off of each other. And I just, again, I reiterate this, let's not have a lockout. Kill this popularity here. Another reason why we should, and actually, I think we should actually see even more than it is now in the stadiums. It's a little hard to follow a schedule, kind of a comprehensive schedule online, digging to make sure you don't miss a game. But I love it. I love the tournament. And let's go.
Last thoughts about the World Baseball Classic. Then we'll talk some Dodgers. But Team Italy having an espresso machine in their dugout. Very Italian, very on brand. Found that kind of comical. I've been having a lot of fun actually watching Team Puerto Rico. I know they're missing some big names like I believe Francisco Lindor is injured, but they still have a very good squad nonetheless. Nolan Arenado is now playing for Team Puerto Rico. They're very fun defensively. Definitely a sleeper team. Don't think they're going to get far enough to the finals, but they'll definitely do some damage in my opinion. And then last but not least, who was the other team? Oh, just that even though they lost against Japan in a blowout, Team Chinese Taipei, also known as Taiwan, they had that battle with Korea, and I can't remember who the player was off the top of my head, but they pretty much, I think, set the devastating blow to potentially knock out Korea of the WBC. They've definitely been performing better than I expected. I think that's all I got for the WBC so far. Anything else you wanted to add, or we can move on to Dodgers?
We're just about done with pool play. I think the teams left, and we'll get to the quarterfinals, and that's where it's going to really get good.
Definitely. All right, so for those watching right now, make sure to hit that like button. If you have Dodgers questions you want us to answer, more than happy to do that. We always want to answer whatever is top of mind for you all when it comes to your Los Angeles Dodgers. The quick takeaway is obviously they've just been looking really great this whole spring. Lots of plate discipline, working walks, not a whole lot of chase. A lot of their younger guys or even some non-roster invites or just maybe veterans that are on minor league deals have really stepped up, in my opinion. On top of that, the pitching has looked really strong overall as well. Shows the depth and just the development that the Dodgers have put and investments into getting these guys ready for the 2026 season. So a lot of reasons to be optimistic. But I just wanted to quickly shout out, because he started today, Justin Robleski threw 3 shutout innings for the Dodgers. He's been on a roll this entire spring for the team. He's thrown, I believe, 6 shutout innings up until this point. And in my opinion, he's locked in for an MLB opening day roster spot for the Dodgers. Not that was within any doubt, but because they continue to build him up, I do feel like he's going to be in that hybrid role where he's definitely earned some starts for the Dodgers early on with a guy like Blake Snell out. And so just if you're not too familiar with Robleski, though I'm sure most of you are by now, especially with how dominant he was in the World Series, I kind of forgot how much he really showed up in that series for us. 2026 is going to be the breakout season for Robleski.
Yeah, it's a good point you make, and it's kind of a nice segue into a question I had for you. That's coming at a really important time for the Dodgers, his emergence, because we know the Dodgers are going to slow play some of their guys. We know, for instance, Blake Snell is going to start the season on the IL as they kind of take their time ramping him up. We know they're going to be careful with Glasnow to some extent, right? There's a little bit of a question around, Gavin Stone, right? Who is not going to be healthy to start the season. I hear from a lot of Dodgers fans, it's okay. We don't need them right now. We can afford it. Well, you can't afford to slow play everybody. You can't afford. So my question is, are we possibly setting ourselves up for maybe a slow start overall of the season by these circumstances where we're not going to have all of our guns fully loaded? I'm not saying we can't withstand it, but I'm just saying, might the start of the season be a little rougher than we think as some of these young guys come in and have to step up? You mentioned Robleski. Emmett Sheehan is another one who has a chance to really make an impact. We haven't seen a lot of him this spring training, but he has a chance to really have some impact for the Dodgers as a starting pitcher this year too. River Ryan might be another one who we kind of shuttle back and forth and give some innings to as a starter. It's kind of just maybe a perfect storm for a slow start, though, of inexperience, young guys, and some IL stints. I'm not sure we're going to leave the gates running, basically, and come out to, an 8-0 start. What do you think?
Yeah, we don't need to start off 8-0 like we did a year ago, but the realistic facts for MLB, this goes for any team. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And for the entire month of April, if you can just float around 500, honestly, I think that's good enough, especially for a team like the Dodgers that are going to have the depth and all the pieces to get those wins as the season moves on. And honestly, the Dodgers offense is as stacked as it's ever been, that they might just be able to rely on their offense and just put runs on the board. And if they give up a few runs here or there, they've got the offense to kind of carry the load and make up for maybe some of these deficits that they could potentially take on early on. So there might be some frustrations. I wouldn't be surprised if Landon Knack, as bad as he's been, gets called up for a spot start here or there for the Dodgers. For Emmett Sheehan, I think he's going to pitch a lot for the Dodgers, and I wouldn't be surprised if he leads the team in innings pitched this season. And the good news for Sheehan, the reason he's been slow played thus far in spring is not because of actual arm injuries or anything. He was just battling some illness, and who knows what that is. I know there's been all types of variants floating around. I've got sick with a virus. flu season, COVID, it can knock you out. It knocked me out for like 2 weeks. So I get it. But you've got Sheehan, Yamamoto's supposed to be healthy, so they're going to probably rely on him. Roki Sasaki remains to be the biggest wild card of all wild cards for this Dodgers team. And I just saw a report from Fabian Ardaya today. It looked like he threw a bullpen session for the Dodgers, and they might be skipping his next start. And he'll throw like a simulated game to Dodgers hitters as opposed to going out there on the mound on spring training, which to me kind of speaks some red flags. Like, are we hiding Roki Sasaki? Are they just not happy with his development? Like, I don't know what's going on with this guy. We saw him make 2 appearances for the Dodgers, and he was not good. And I just haven't seen the big leap forward from rookie season to year 2, other than the velocity has been ticking up.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I hadn't heard that, but that doesn't sound great to me. I think he's a kid who needs to be out there in game, getting in-game experience every chance he gets. The fact of the matter is, if his name wasn't Roki Sasaki, I think everyone would be in agreement that he has not earned a starting spot on the roster. He could be at AAA. I think is a better place for him. They're working it out. But let's see what he has. I mean, I just continue to hear mixed things. At one point, there's reports that he looks better than ever. Then he comes out in the game and we see it, and it's just not there. Until he can consistently throw a fastball, even for strikes, I'm not bought in. I'm rooting for him. There's a difference, but I'm commenting on performance. And performance-based, it's not there. So one other additional point, too, for these young guys like Sheehan, River Ryan, Wroblewski, this is a great opportunity, right, for them to come in and show what they've got that they might not, really have once the rotation gets solidified, everybody comes back and is healthy, and you can't crack it. So show us what you got now and build up your stock for later, and they might hang around.
Justin Yamas agrees with you. If his name wasn't Roki Sasaki, then River Ryan and Robo would have rotation spots easily. I'm still following along as the Dodgers are playing the Athletics in this spring training game. They currently trail 9-7, and I guess Andy Ibanez took getting DFA'd by the Dodgers personally because he's 4 for 5 in this game, and he just hit the go-ahead RBI base hit to give the Athletics the lead over the Dodgers. So I am a firm believer that you can win jobs in spring training. I don't believe that the Dodgers go into a spring knowing their full 26-man roster and saying, whatever the results are, this is going to be our roster. I do believe there are always a few fringe guys. Maybe 23 of the 26 are locked in, but there's always a few openings that you can win your shot and get onto the Dodgers opening day roster. And this is where I get into the point now. A guy like Alex Freeland probably was a front runner to win a job for the Dodgers. Maybe not necessarily an everyday role while Tommy Edman's out, but certainly a lot of playing time. And up until this point, unfortunately for Alex Freeland, I think he played his way out of the job, as he's currently hitting 167 with a 632 OPS. And I don't know if anybody saw this coming when they initially signed him to a minor league deal invite to spring training, but Santiago Espinal easily played his way onto the Dodgers roster. And we pretty much got confirmation that he's going to make it, because Dave Roberts a couple days ago, when asked about Espinal, essentially said he doesn't see a world where Espinal doesn't make the Dodgers opening day roster. So when you've got a homegrown guy like Freeland, who was expected to make it but played his way off, and a guy that no one saw coming like Espinal, who's playing his way onto the Dodgers, just goes to show you that as a player, you need to still bring your game to spring training, and you shouldn't just assume that you're locked in. So it's just little things like that where a guy who is trying to establish himself and make his way onto a team, it appears to be the case for Espinal.
Yeah, he certainly earned it. I think he went out and hit a home run after Dave Roberts said that, yeah. So he didn't take his foot off the gas. It's a luxury for the Dodgers, right? Because I don't think Alex Freeland is a bad player. I don't think they're going to give up on him. I think he's going to continue to get developed at AAA. And if the magic runs out for Espinal, we'll see what Freeland has in the tank at that time. So it can only benefit the Dodgers to continue to develop Freeland, whether they want to eventually trade him or look at him again. But for now, yeah, Espinal has been the story of spring training.
And it's also worth noting that these essentially extra bench spots might not last that very long because, first of all, with Tommy Edman, he's already swinging the bat. He's starting to get into game shape. I wouldn't be surprised if the Dodgers activate him off the IL sometime between very late April and early-ish May. That's when I could see Tommy Edman come back. And then Kike Hernandez, who's been doing a number of interviews recently, he was he either was asked or he put forward that he expects to come off the 60-day IL when he's eligible, which is around May 24th. So if you got Edman and Kike both coming back, and assuming there are no injuries, the Dodgers are going to have to make some tough calls with, either DFAing someone that might not have options or sending them down. And that's where, Espinal or someone else, might see the axe. But in the short-term interim thing, maybe that motivates a guy like Espinal, and he has to just continue to play his way to stay on the roster, and the Dodgers have to figure out something else creative. Because the other guy that I was sleeping on, and he's just been on fire this spring training, and hopefully it carries over once the regular season actually gets going, it's Alex Call. I really didn't expect a whole lot from Call, but so far in the 6 or 7 games he's played this spring, he's hitting 500 with a 1,300 plus OPS. He hit a home run earlier this afternoon, and he's just looked locked in for the Dodgers. I know he's going to be a platoon bat and not play a whole lot for the Dodgers, but there's always value in a guy that you can count on in those spot starts when needed to give a guy a day off to stay fresh, or even pinch hit scenarios. And so credit to Alex Call. He looks ready.
Yeah, I have no evidence for this, so maybe someone will correct me if they can dig the stats up. But here's what worries me about Cole. Is a type of player who needs to play a lot to stay effective. I think it's difficult for limited opportunities like he had last year and his type of game. I don't know. That's just seems the more he plays, such as in spring training, the player we see. I think I mentioned to you on a comment on Twitter, and that wasn't disrespected Call. That was more of game and the limited chances that he get up as a bench player. I think he would probably shine more. Obviously, that's not a role on this team. There's just not a path for that for him. See what he's got. Let's see if he can continue to figure out a way to maximize his game in those small opportunities that he has, those maybe in battle games, and see. He just has to get on base, right? Get on base. That's That's why he's there. So let's see. But it's not a bad problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very valid point. I think that's the case for many MLB players. So I think for Alex Call, if he does get into a rough slump potentially, well, he does have options so they can send him down. But he's certainly good depth to have at this point, especially if an injury were to happen. But I'm not going to float that into the universe because speaking of good outfielders, both Andy Pages and Teoscar Hernandez have just both looked super locked in all spring training long. And I wouldn't be surprised if both of them were to hit 30 or more home runs this season because they both just look so ready for this season.
A couple of podcasts ago, I brought up Pages and we talked a little bit about him and where we thought it would be for him to kind of lock down that bottom third of the lineup, and mentioned that he being able to adjust and adapt. And so it looks like he's kind of adjusted whatever was, maybe he wasn't picking up on late last season. He's had a great spring training. I feel good about him. Out of kind of the uncertainty that I had. And I think, he's going to move forward and see him unlock maybe another level to his game in terms of in the batter's box.
Definitely. Not too much else to talk about. We're just waiting for the season to start at this point, but I did want to just quickly shout out Ben Kasparius, because I feel like I don't talk a lot about him, but I've just been really impressed with his stuff. And I look at the advanced stuff evaluators that you can find on X. There's a number of them, whether it's TJ Stats or Pitch Profiler, whatever. They've just all been grading him very highly, especially his slider. It's just been very devastating with a ton of movement, generating whiffs. He's got a really good fastball with a lot of movement on that as well. I know Ben Kasparius was just locked down in the first half for the Dodgers, and then unfortunately for him, didn't really have a role in the second half. And I don't even think he pitched in October in this most recent World Series run for the Dodgers. I know he did in 2024, but not in 2025. I think for Ben Kasparius, I wouldn't be shocked if he just establishes himself and is a dominant reliever from start to finish this go around for the Dodgers. I think there's going to be a ton of value in him for this full season. I really do.
He kind of seems like one of those old school swingman type pitchers, right? Who you could come in and he can give you 2 or 3 big innings in a tight game, or give you just that one inning. What I hope they don't do is what they did last year with him. And now you're a starter. Now you're a reliever. I know that had to take a mental toll on him. So if they can just say you're a relief pitcher, and we might need one inning from you today, we might need 2 innings from you, and just let him get in that mindset, I think he can leverage everything that he's got. And again, another luxury for the Dodgers to have that kind of an arm.
I really do think that's going to be their approach with him, because I also was in that camp that it just messed up his groove and just the rhythm and everything, and it threw him off. And I think that's what Kyle Hurt is going to be for, and Justin Robleski to an extent. Those are going to be their guys that pitch multiple innings out of the pen. For Kasparius, honestly, I would like them to max him out at maybe 2 innings max per outing, and just kind of keep some type of stability for him so that he knows what his role is and he doesn't have to mentally prep each and every outing, kind of having to expect the unexpected. Honey Oats wants us to give Zach Earnhardt some love. I mean, I know I did on a show or two ago, but this is just credit to the Dodgers' depth. They got him in that Dustin May trade. So Zach Earnhardt had some more hits again for the Dodgers today. He's actually just been on fire in general for us all spring training long. The outfield depth is just insane from a prospect approach for the Dodgers. I have no idea how they're going to get all these guys reasonable playing time. You've got DePaula, Hope, Sorotta, who hasn't played this spring. You've got Tibbs, who's had a pretty respectable spring. Earnhardt, who I just mentioned. Kendall George, who was a high draft pick for the Dodgers. Very fast guy, stole 100 bases in the minor. Maybe not a good hitter, so I don't know what his future is going to look like. But just a ton of depth through this Dodgers farm system from the outfield perspective. And then Quintero, who's had limited spring training, but could be the best of all the Dodgers outfield prospects. But credit to Friedman, Gomes, and everyone else. They're loaded from this position.
Yeah, every time I look up, it seems like he's getting a hit, running hard, doing all the little things. I fear that he's going to have the Michael Busch treatment a little bit, and just like you said, not have an avenue to get up to the big club. But let's see what he's got, and potential trade chip in the future maybe if we can stash him. But not I don't know. He definitely hasn't done anything to discredit himself in spring training.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's had a really good approach. He's had some doubles. Just been very impressed with him. A lot of young Dodgers talent has really just flourished throughout this spring training. And that's one of my favorite parts. I know that some people complain that there's too many spring training games, and I get it. It does kind of go on a little bit too long, but it's a really good opportunity to see a lot of these younger guys step up, or in a case like Ryan Ward, not step up. So I think not to end on a negative note, but for those that were kind of clinging on to the hope that maybe Ryan Ward could be an MLB baseball player for the Dodgers in the foreseeable future. I think this spring training is kind of putting that narrative to bed, and I don't know what the future for Ryan Ward truly holds for the Dodgers, but I'm just not seeing it. It's kind of up there with the DJ Peters, Luke Raley career arc, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good comp or a bad comp, depending on how you want to say it. If it's a good bad comp, definitely. 14 games after today's game, right? So 14 games left in spring training before we start playing for real. I think things will start to solidify more and more. Hopefully, we also health is everybody stays healthy for the team, and we hit the ground running because I do think we're going to have to weather some young pitching early on, and maybe it'll be great for us. Maybe it won't, but offense needs to come ready to play in those first couple of weeks of the season. Super excited to see that happen. My number one storyline continues to be who Mookie Betts will be this year. I don't know. I know what I'm hoping for, and I'm a huge fan of his, but I watch that with intrigue. And I think about it with intrigue every time. Every time I turn the TV on and put the Dodgers on, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that question honestly right now, who Mookie Betts is going to be. And I know we're hearing different things, but until we see it, we won't know.
So I don't have an idiot of the week because we already gave that to Jerks and Profar to kind of kick off the week. I don't have anything out of left field to really talk about. But if you have anything you want to quickly get out there, otherwise we'll get into final thoughts. And I have one last question for you, and we're getting on out of here. Anything you want to throw out there first?
No. I kind of just started with my Mookie Betts one, so happy to turn it over.
All right, so the last question, and then we're out of here. General MLB, who's one team that you're higher on than maybe you feel like the general public is not on going into 2026?
I don't know. I don't want to try to sound like I'm being edgy. I think the Whites than they were. I think they've got talent. I think they tried to do a little bit this year. I don't think they're going to contend, but I think they're going to play better baseball. I'm interested to see Colson Montgomery. 21 homers last year and only 71 games. I know the strikeouts might be kind of high, but I think he's going to get chances. They have some other young guys that I know they're bringing up. Could be interesting. I know my mailman, just by coincidence, is a White Sox fan, so he has a little bit of hope in him, which White Sox fans don't actually have. So I don't know if I think they're going to be leaps and bounds better, but I think I'm interested to see what they look like. What about you? Is there a team?
My pick, and this is going to be closer to home for you. Hot take, bold prediction, the Texas Rangers win the AL West. I am very high on their starting staff. I think Jack Leiter is going to have a huge season. I think Mackenzie Gore will figure it out. I think Jacob deGrom should stay healthy. I think the Rangers have a really good starting staff and, solid bullpen to back it up. But offensively, I think they're going to have a lot of pieces that get the job done. Wyatt Langford, I think he's going to have a true breakout campaign for Texas, be in the heart of that order. Corey Seager will continue to do Corey Seager things as long as he's healthy. He's an AL MVP worthy type of bat. Adding Brandon Nimmo for the New York Mets, I think he will still have a little bit juice left to help them out. Hoping Evan Carter finally puts it together as well for Texas. But I think I really like this team. I like the manager they got. I believe Skip Schumacher is running that ship now. I like Texas.
I like their pitching. I agree with you. I'm not as huge a fan of Mackenzie Gore as you are, but I do think he's a very good pitcher. I don't know if we can ever count on Jacob deGrom, but while they have him, absolutely. The pitching doesn't worry me. I think this is going to come from other than Corey Corey Seager. Evan Carter has thought he was going to be their breakout star during that World Series run when he looked so good, and it just hasn't happened. But I think injuries have kind of slowed him down. They're going to need Corey Seager, which be fine. Wyatt Langford to emerge with the player everyone thinks he's going to be. They're going to need Evan Carter to figure it out. I don't see them score, but maybe they don't have to with those pitchers. I do think they'll contend 100%, but I think they're going to be in some low-scoring games.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We talked World Baseball Classic and Dodgers Spring Training. For those watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Go ahead and drop a comment for who you think is going to win the World Baseball Classic. And if you're listening on the audio feed, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, you name it, and you love the show, leave a review and hit that subscribe button. All right, well, have a great rest of your Sunday or Monday if you're listening the following day. We'll have more content out for you guys soon.